Alright, so it was about a week ago we showed you Marley when he was first popping out of his little bag, so here's how big it's gotten since.
Oh, it's even bigger than it was yesterday. Wow, Marley, way to go, bud.
So yesterday Conga Curdy was playing like directly on top of Marley, so probably explains why it got so big, but it's definitely bigger than a head of cauliflower, that's safe to say.
Oh, yeah.
Or albino broccoli.
Well, let's put
what
we'll
I
put my
refer to
phone
it.
next to it for scale.
Yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, pretty big.
It's a big mushroom.
So it's supposed to start growing some teeth at some point and like making it look like lion's mane. But Matt from Blue Sky Fungi said it's looking pretty good, particularly in Southern California, because this is not a climate for these things. So I think we're doing all right. So we'll see. Here's your update. What you doing, Mrs. Williams?
I'm getting ready for the virtual campfire announcement.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, oh my god, my lips are chapped. Yeah, so we're gonna announce the first. I'm gonna tell people what it is and why they should contribute, and talk a little bit about Giving Tuesday and what Hiking My Feelings is doing instead of touring the United States and Canada. And then tell them about the virtual campfire and how they can get involved and announce the guests. My name is Sydney, and I am the founder of Hiking My Feelings and the author of the book Hiking My Feelings, Stepping into the Healing Power of Nature. And today I am excited to share with you some details about our first and biggest fundraising initiative that we have for Hiking My Feelings, and that is our virtual campfire event series. We are going to be hosting 20 nights of live entertainment around a virtual campfire, and I will get to that in a little bit. Today I'm going to be sharing a bit more about the event, how you can get involved, our first round of lineup announcements so you can know who's going to be around the campfire and see why you should participate. In general, it's probably going to be the most badass campfire you've ever been to, in that we're just going to be like, the whole vibe is just like what we would be doing if we were hiking. Instead of being quarantined, we'd be sitting around the campfire. If we got lucky, maybe somebody had like a little ukulele or some kind of instrument and maybe they wanted to sing. But campfires in general, I love more than anything. It's one of my favorite parts of spending time outside, especially when we're camping, and just as a tool for connection when we're so stuck where we are and all we have are screens. I've heard a lot about Zoom fatigue. I've heard a lot of people talking about just being really over these different meetings that they're doing for work and everything else. But I find that when you set an intention for the time that you're about to spend, it's a lot more productive and a lot more fruitful. So what we're doing is hosting the virtual campfire for community, connection, to hold space, and to raise money for the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. So a little bit about where I'm at today. I am sitting at the Moon Tower. I'm at the Reggae Ranch, which is on 9 acres in the Cuyamaca Mountains. We're in Julian, California. Our friends Sue and Dustin bought this property last year, and they are dedicating this space as a retreat for artists locally and not local, to stop in and just have a break from city life, from being on tour. If they need a place to come create music, they're welcome to come here. And it's kind of funny how it all turned out. When Barry and I were thinking about where we wanted to build the retreat center and how we wanted to do it, we had a short list of like non-negotiables. We wanted to be within 90 minutes of a major metropolitan airport. We wanted to be somewhere with like trees, preferably in the mountains. If it's close to water, even better. And we wanted to have trails on property. And if there weren't trails on property, we'd like to be somewhere close to like some pretty iconic hikes. So we started looking around the country once we decided that we wanted to do this. Now everywhere we were going around the country last year, we were like, oh, like what's the energy like here? Do we like this? Could we build a retreat center here? And one of the cool things that happened when we got back from our canceled tour this year was, after I was done being in the fetal position for 2 weeks, I went for a walk with Sue up to the other side of the property. We go up and over the mountain, watch like the birds and check out all the beautiful views. And on the way back, she pointed out this flat spot off to the side of the trail, and she was like, hey, that could be a cool place for you to build something. Just like super casual. And I was like, does she mean like the retreat center, or does she mean like a place for me to put a tent when I'm feeling like I don't want to be in the van? Like, what are we talking about here? So Barry and I had been thinking about like where we want to build stuff, what do we want to do, how are we going to transition our business as Hiking My Feelings to help as many people as we can in this new world that we're living in. And also, we're not going to wait around until we can do what we were doing. We want to build the world that we want to live in, and we want to build it right now. So over the course of the next couple weeks after that, like the seed was planted and it started to like infiltrate my brain, and I was like, what if we like started the retreat center here, as if this was a totally original idea that hadn't been suggested by somebody else already. And we talked to Sue and Dustin, and they were like, yeah, whatever you need, you guys, like, when we said you have a home base when you're not touring, we meant that. You're welcome here. If you guys want to build here, we'd love to have you. So this is the home, the future home of the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. We're up over on the other side of the mountain with a great view of the valley behind me here. And our vision for the space and our first phase of construction and what we're raising money for now is the hub of the community center. So what we're doing is we're building a big 32-foot by 32-foot deck, and on top of that we're putting a 24-foot geodesic dome. And we picked the dome structure for a lot of reasons. The primary one being, in this particular valley, in these mountains, the winds can get up to like 100 miles an hour. When we got back from the tour last year, before we left for the 2020 tour, we had winds topping out at 106 miles per hour. So for a structure to be up on the mountain without a lot of shelter, it needs to be pretty sturdy. And geodesic domes are one of the most sturdy structures you can have. So we're really excited about it for that reason. The sacred geometry angle of it is incredibly enticing, and also just getting out of the box and actually living in a circle is going to be incredible. So the dome serves as the hub for all of our programming. So that's where we'll do all of our online stuff. Like, that's where we'll do the work from and do all our filming from. It will also serve as the main building for our retreats, our in-person workshops, and as base camp for all of our group hikes and backpacking trips. The loose flow of the event is I start with a welcome and a toast to you, our beautiful donors who share the vision that we are trying to create in this world. And then I read a chapter from my book. The whole thing in Chicago was I wanted to do a walking book tour. So as we were hiking, I was planning on reading the chapter in the morning for Instagram and Facebook and everybody anyway. And that part continues. So I will be reading a chapter from the book every day. And the next guest that I bring on will be somebody whose work, art, or lived experience ties into the themes of that chapter. So once we get done with the campfire chat with our special guests, then we have our performance of some sort. We have musicians, we have a chef, we have a spoken word artist, we have an embodiment like dancing, singing, spoken word performance, comedians, and live art. And I think there's more that I might be forgetting, but in general, there's some kind of live performance of some kind, something to entertain everybody, bring our spirits up, bring us all together. And then we're really excited to introduce members of the Hiking My Feelings family to you. So you can get to know some of the people that we've met on the road or online through this work that have just been really instrumental in helping us get this movement going and sustaining our organization. So we're really excited to introduce you to members of our community, and then I'll send you off with like a little positive note to think about before you go to sleepy. So I want to like Bernie Sanders the hell out of this and raise like a bunch of money with a bunch of donors, just like 20 bucks at a time. I'm down for that. And also, being realistic, to build a retreat center, we're going to need bigger donors. So if you are somebody who's looking to donate to a cause that you can get behind, if you're looking to support survivors of sexual assault, if you're interested in diabetes prevention and management, those are the two primary audiences that we focus on. We also focus on, obviously, the mind-body connection, mindfulness, mental health. Those are our 3 lanes that we plan. So if those are causes that you care about and you're looking for somewhere to put your money and really just help us build the world that we want to live in, there is a button underneath all the access passes where you can enter your own amount. So if it is more than $250, you can determine that there and do that yourself. So the vision is a beautiful retreat center. With your help, you can help us make this happen. This is a new chapter of our story. You can help us write it. And I'll see if we have any questions. Are there any questions? Nope? Okay, cool. Hi, Linda. So we're doing the sunset from the future home of the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center, and we're streaming it on Facebook so everybody can enjoy the view. There's a nice little angel cloud out there. Linda is kind of dissipated now, but all of that was reflecting like it did at Adams Memorial. That video's in our Facebook group.
So what's going on, Mrs. Williams?
Just waiting for my computer to restart, and hopefully this doesn't affect my ability to go live at the right time. I just wanted to get as much computer power as I can for this.
Okay. What kind of live are you doing here?
Oh, I'm doing a digital storytelling event with the Joshua Tree National Park Association.
So you're gonna tell your original story.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We did a little refreshing last night.
Yeah.
Had to remind yourself of how this whole thing went.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, I was listening to it, and I was like, oh, I'm so cute. Listen to all the details I give that just aren't really necessary. But you brought up a good point, and I'm a storyteller, and the details make the story, so
yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I hope the birds aren't distracting for our guests.
Oh, I think it'll be nice.
I think they'll like it.
What are they gonna do? It's free. Are they gonna ask for their money back?
Yeah. If you don't like it, tough titties.
Yeah.
So, welcome to Desert Live. This is a digital storytelling event hosted by the Joshua Tree National Park Association and myself. My name is Sydney Williams, and tonight I will be your storytelling guide. Before we get started, a couple quick things. So, one thing that we do want to do every time we spend time on land, something that's really important to the Joshua Tree National Park Association and something that's important to us here at Hiking My Feelings, is to acknowledge the land that we're on. So before we begin, we want to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have stewarded the land we are on for time immemorial. And for Joshua Tree in particular, the tribes around that area were Mojave, Cahuilla, Serrano, and Chemehuevi. And I'm in Julian, California, in the mountains out in the Cuyamaca Mountains, where behind us is Cleveland National Forest. On the other side of our mountain is Cuyamaca Rancho State Park, and this is the land of the Kumeyaay tribe. So this event is possible thanks to the support from the Desert Institute. And for anybody that's new to the Desert Institute, they are the branch of Joshua Tree National Park Association dedicated to bringing educational, cultural, and artistic programs to the field with Joshua Tree National Park Service and its surrounding areas. So, in that moment, in that dressing room, I chose love for myself and curiosity about how I got there than over the fear of being fat. When I got diagnosed with diabetes, I chose love for myself over the fear of the stigma of that disease. I didn't know what diabetes was about. I could have looked at that diagnosis as a death sentence, and I could have just given up and been like, well, it's too late now. I've got a chronic illness. I'm just going to be sick for the rest of my life. But I believed that I could heal myself, and I wanted to see if it was possible. And in that moment, when I was diagnosed, I chose love for myself over the fear of the stigma of that disease. And every time I get to stand up, sit down, do it in person, do it online, do it on a trail, whatever, every time I get to share this story, I'm choosing love for myself over the fear of what happens when a woman stands up and speaks her truth. Because regardless of where you sit politically, socially, economically, conversations about trauma, in particular about sexual assault, are not open conversations that we have willingly in this society. We just don't. So in that moment, every time that I do this, I'm choosing love for myself over the fear of that, of what happens. Like, we've seen how sexual assault stories play out in the media. We see how people just get dragged through the mud, and it's a scary thing. But the only reason that I even have the confidence and the ability to share the story that I'm sharing with you now is because other people were brave enough to do it and gave me the language so I could understand what happened to me and then turn my pain into power. Chapter 18. We're starting on page 231. It's called Unpacking My Trauma Pack. The last chapter was when I made all the little dot connections between what was happening across this island and how the trauma was all tied to it. So what we're going to do today, I know it's Mother's Day, so I want to be respectful of your time and energy in case you have Mother's Day things to do, whether that's Zoom or in person or just not celebrating. So we're going to read through the book. I'll walk you through the resources for this week, and then next week the epilogue is technically like one of the most important chapters of the book because it's like all of the insights and the takeaways from this whole journey. So next week is going to be a little bit more involved, and we'll talk about like what next steps are if you want to continue doing this work. This course was free, and we've launched our virtual campfire fundraiser to raise money for the Wilderness Wellness Center. And to continue doing this work, we have pivoted the programming that we were going to be doing on tour this year in person to be online. So the next round of whatever this is called Blaze Your Own Trail to Self-Love, and we'll talk about that a little bit today, and then I'll dig into it like more in depth next week. So we will go ahead and get started. We're on page 231, and this is Unpacking My Trauma Pack. All right, resources, digging on in. Chapter 18. Okay, so the backpack icon, clearly we know what that's about. Unpacking My Trauma Pack, we know what that's about. So let's move down to inspiration. So the theme of this one is what's in your trauma pack. As you've been reading this book, I've been asking you to make notes in the margins when you feel triggered by something. Take a look back over the notes in the margins and see if there are any themes. What am I talking about at that particular point of the story? What have you been feeling in your body, and where are you feeling it? And this is where we get to the good stuff. This is why we read and reflect. So knowing that everyone has one of these backpacks on should make the work feel a bit more approachable. What I have in my backpack and what you have in yours may be completely different, but I have a feeling it's a lot of the same stuff. What worked for me may not work for you, but if at any point the stories of my processing inspired you or made you feel motivated to unpack your own backpack, just know that I've got your back and I'm happy to help. I can't make the pain go away, but I can help you navigate it in a healthy way. So we've been saying this whole time, that the awareness is the work. And now that you've read the book, it's time to take stock. So can you put down your trauma pack for a second? Can you allow yourself to feel the release of the weight? And do you trust that you can handle a departure from the struggle? If all you know is trauma and pain, can you put it down for a second? Trauma and pain aren't an identity. You don't get a prize for sucking it up and suppressing it. And there are no trophies for the people who can numb the pain the best. So now that you have the awareness, you've already started the work. And that's the biggest thing, is like, you're already doing it. By participating in this course, you're doing it. By showing up to these calls, you're doing it. By reading the book, you're doing it. By writing the margins of or writing your little notes in the margin, that is the work. Like, there isn't some big destination of doing the work that you have to reach. Like, this is it. This is the journey. We're on it. So you can't really turn back once you have the awareness of it. At least I couldn't. And I think that when people gain awareness about themselves and then suppress it because they're scared of what that means, that's what compounds the trauma. That's what leads to violence, whether that's personal violence, interpersonal violence. Like, people don't know how to handle these things, so they take it out on other people, and it really just does the whole world a disservice. So it's your like, your healing is your responsibility, and also you have to do the healing part. Like, you can't just be aware of the fact that you need some support or some help in these different areas and then just like go about your life, because that's what you've been doing up until this point. That's what I was doing up until I connected these dots. I was like, something's wrong, but I don't know what, so it. Like, that's not an acceptable way to get through stuff. And if it is acceptable to you, then I would encourage you to do what I did and take a look at your life and be like, is this the happiest and healthiest that I could possibly be in every area of my life? And if the answer is no, then like, pick an area to start focusing on. For some people, the primary focus for their entire life has been their appearance or their weight or their health. And that's important. And physical health is obviously very important. You only get one body in this life, so you should treat it well. But also, like, your emotional health, your spiritual health, finding a community where you feel supported and uplifted and seen and understood for who you are, to where you don't have to wear a mask every time you show up. Like, where can you find the support in your life where you feel like it is just a completely judgment-free zone? Because that's what it requires, first and foremost, within yourself, to stop judging yourself so you can do this work. And that's what I was saying in the chapter 18, is like, by the time I got down, like by the time I got to the heaviest thing in my backpack, which was the sexual assault, I already had so much practice not talking to myself that there was no way that that discovery was going to take me down. So that's why it's important. Like, I don't believe in prescribing a path, but I do believe that there are ways to get through this that makes sense, where you're not skipping over steps and then feeling resentful of the process. So it has to start with no judgment for yourself. And if that's still an issue, then that's where you start. That's where you start working on stuff. Is like, can I be in community with myself without judgment? And if so, then I can show up in community without judgment, and I am a much more pleasant person to be around. So I think first and foremost, getting it together for yourself and having these conversations with yourself is where that work starts. And then the next layer of healing is finding somebody that you trust that you can share that with and start to process it with. And if that's a therapist, great. If it's this group, great. If it's your mom, awesome. If it's your best friend or your partner or your dog, doesn't really matter who's doing the listening, as long as that listening is being done in a way that doesn't judge you and doesn't make you feel like less than for having experienced what you've experienced, and feeling empowered to start reclaiming these parts of your story.
What's going on?
That was the last one.
No, it wasn't.
I read the last chapter.
Yeah.
Well, I read the last chapter. It's not the last one,
Yeah.
but it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's good.
man. Humans are resilient creatures.
Yeah.
Some of the humans in this group have been through a lot of and I'm just so excited that they are still here.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Want to go to the nest?
Yes,
All right.
desperately.
Next time on Williams in the Wild.
So things we got coming up this week, we are doing the next round of guest and performer announcements on Tuesday at noon, again via Zoom and Instagram Live. And then that's really all we've got going on this week, is just like guest announcements and like getting stuff up and running for the campfire and getting stuff dialed in for Blaze Your Own Trail, because that starts in June. So yeah, we're just kind of quietly working to get everything ready for the big fundraiser. And if you guys have any questions about anything at any point, let me know. I'll be around. Last week was just like a real heavy lift, so I wasn't in the group much, but we actually took 2 whole days off this weekend. I took off all day Friday and all day Saturday, and I'm going to take off the rest of the day today, just because we've been just go since we got back from Joshua Tree, whether that was like